Warm welcome to one and all, and a very good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman, for the kind introduction about myself as well as Keller. I'm really delighted today to have with you all virtually. And first of all, great appreciation to coordinators and organizers of this conference for inviting me to share some of our views. And I choose to have this topic moving towards sustainable ground engineering. As a civil engineer and geotechnical engineer, last 2 decades, whatever we have done several optimal foundation systems in various infrastructure projects. But I think in today's need and demand from the industry as well as the several stakeholders, sustainability is a new topic which I think we are all feel responsibility and must take the accountability towards this sustainable ground engineering. So I would like to share some of the views in relation to this topic. And today's content is categorized as the following topics: glimpse on the carbon footprint. Maybe some of you are not so familiar, so I just wanted to take a minute on explaining the carbon footprint, which is I think, the heart of the whole topic when we are addressing the sustainability in the construction and more specifically the foundation engineering. And building foundations for the sustainable future, including the needs as well as the role of the geotechnical engineering to achieve the same. And I would like to touch a case study where we have done a similar structure on one case, heavy foundation solution, and the other case on the ground improvement solution, and what it means in terms of the carbon footprint and achieving a better sustainability with various choices as a foundation engineer or a geotechnical engineer that we can opt for. And finally, some summarizing points. So let's take a look on the carbon emission as a nutshell when we wanted to understand why it is the need of the hour. If you see this graph, 1950s, I think maybe world population could be in the order of 2.5 billion. The carbon emission for the overall globe is about 5 billion tons. And by 2020, after 70 years, it is increased to 35 billion tons, which is almost like a 7 times over 70 years. Whereas maybe the same duration, the world population might have increased to 8 billion, around 2.5 times. So with the increasing demand of population and as well as the industrialization and urbanization, a huge carbon emission that is being emitted to the atmosphere. Why this is the concern, I will touch on the coming slides, but this is the fact that so much carbon emission is happening in our globe. And where this is coming from, this is again a statistics picked up. China is coming around 10 billion tons, and then the United States is about 5 billion tons, and India probably the third most emission happening around 2 or 3 billion tons. If you see, there is a good news also in this slide. Between 2019 and 2020, in that 1 year period, there is globally 6.4% of reduction. And India is not bad, 8% reduction. That means a great awareness, great increasing interest in this particular area of why we need to decrease the carbon emission. So we are actually moving towards the right step in the direction, but it is just a start. A lot of way forward that we need to ascertain. But I would like to connect this to more of a construction and the role of a geotechnical engineer, looking at this overall carbon emission as a globe. So when we want to connect this topic to construction industry, this lovely picture explaining the life cycle of a construction, right from the extraction of raw materials, going through the construction processes and then operation, and then right at the end, recycling of those construction materials. So in simple terms, what is carbon footprint? The amount of the greenhouse gases emitted in various forms. There are several gases, like 7 gases are emitted through greenhouse gases. But in that gases, due to this industrialization or urbanization, 80% of the emitted gases are pertaining to the carbon dioxide. So that is what we call it as a carbon dioxide equivalent. So 80% of the total greenhouse gases are contributed by the CO2e. So that is why we require to pay attention to this carbon dioxide emission. So what it means, if you just wanted to feel it from the quantum point of view, let us say an average middle class family in India emits about 2 to 3 tons of a CO2 per month. And if you consume 1 ton of a steel, that leads to an emission of 1.85 tons of a CO2 released into the atmosphere. So globally, if you include all these sectors like aviation, automobile, industries, everything, construction, steel and cement, these two raw materials production alone leads to 16% of the overall CO2 emission per annum. So I think there is in lies very clear fact that anything that is used enormously or excessively in the form of a steel and cement will lead to more and more carbon emission, which is causing a global problem. Why it is causing a global problem? So I think we are all aware the global warming is a threat to future. If we can imagine, the right side of the picture is maybe 1950s, where there is not much of industrialization. Probably the only industry is the agriculture, the cultivation, all that doesn't cause so much of carbon emission. Whereas towards left, you can imagine the recent last few decades, so much of urbanization and industrialization causing so much of emission of carbon dioxide. This leading to big awareness across the globe, and many nations have already realized what are the statutory norms that they have to obligate, and increasing demand to decrease the carbon emission, because it is really causing a lot of seasonal impact. Even in India, we can realize now heat waves across the year that you are getting very intensified. So I think as a responsible citizen of the globe in every country, that we all have to do our bit of it to reduce the carbon emission to ensure the sustainable planet on the world. Yeah. So there are various drivers in looking at it to address this issue and reduce the carbon emission. It could be client demand in various developing countries. It could be legislation in developed countries. It could be the efficiency savings. It could be the risk management. It could be employee demand. It could be as simple as attracting and retaining talent. The young generation, because when we transfer this planet to the future generation, probably they are more wanted to serve to companies who are actually caring for the sustainability for the future. So you may actually get into a very good positioning of attracting a good talent and also retaining a good talent. And also the moral leadership plays a very vital role in addressing this topic. So how we can connect this issue, building foundations for a sustainable future. So as a Keller, these are some of the principles we wanted to follow when we wanted to look at the sustainable foundations. Be on the right side of the history. We don't want to get blamed by the future generations that our predecessor or ancestors really screwed up our atmosphere and not caring for the environment. And lead whilst we still can before it gets too late, and realize the opportunity. So every challenge can emerge as an opportunity. So we should realize that and mitigate the risk to the extent possible. And the carbon is the key, but it's only the start in the overall sustainability for the future. Yeah. So the way we look at it is in 3 categories: scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. It's quite simple. Scope 1 denotes basically the direct emission in the form of a fuel usage when you employ several construction equipment at a construction site. And scope 2 is an indirect emission, that is in the form of a power consumption or electricity that you use at office or a workshop or a yard or things like that. And scope 3 is indirect emission, but unfortunately it contributes 90% of it, because you don't manufacture the raw materials like a steel and cement at construction site. It gets manufactured elsewhere in a factory and then gets transported. So that is actually indirect emission, where the most amount of the carbon emission is being released. That is about 90%. So the way we look at it, it's an inverted triangle. Basically, if you say that I would like to emit as much as I can, but I would like to compensate, that is not way forward. Because I'll tell you in coming slide why it is just not practically possible to compensate everything to offset the released carbon dioxide. First process is the elimination. For example, if you have a choice of 2 foundation techniques, you can eliminate a technique which consumes more carbon emission technique, provided it is technically viable. reduce. So for example, you optimize even the given solution, fewer piles, for example, or lesser depth, so that you reduce the quantum of material that you wanted to use in the foundation technique. Or substitute like an alternative materials or powered by renewable energy. For example, you don't want it to consume the normal power and you wanted to get equipped with the solar panels for the workshop. That is like alternative substitute to use the renewable energy. Compensate after doing all these efforts, still you have to emit some quantum of the CO2e. Then you have to get the carbon credits. For example, you wanted to plant trees to get a negative carbon solution, so that you get a offsetting equation to earn that carbon credits. So just to give an illustration, if you consume 1 metric ton of steel in the construction industry, that's equivalent to 1.85 tons of a CO2e. That means in order to compensate 1 metric ton of steel, you need to have a plantation over 2.4 acres, which is just practically not possible because we know amount of steel that we consume in construction industry. So a compensation alone doesn't make at all possible to achieve our goal. We have to look at the possible ways of elimination and reduction of the quantities, and then alternative ways of finding the alternative materials. So the role of geotechnical engineer in achieving this is very important, and I think he's at early position at site. For example, in any construction project or industrial or infrastructure, the kind of opportunities we have as a geotechnical engineer is not available for example, structural engineer. Because superstructure is like a controlled thing. You cannot say, I will not use their concrete and steel. But at a ground engineering level, that you have a choice at early position. And the planning and design that takes into as a geotechnical engineer, and life cycle assessment of the project and environmental impact assessment of the project is very important to decide the foundation choice. And if you can make a bit of an effort for the sustainability in this assessment and gets constructed and delivered as an end geotechnical result, then I think there is a big way of solving this problem to the greater extent. Then the carbon calculator is one of the tools that we use in assessing the various choices of foundation techniques that takes into the account of raw materials, manufacture, transport, site operations. And these standards are developed by the European Federation as well as the DFI and certified to ISO as well as the GHG protocol. So this is very simple, Excel-based and publicly available. And I think one should start using this carbon calculator when you wanted to design a foundation solution for a given geotechnical application. Then these are the major drivers or influencers, you can call it. Material is one of the major one. The size of the bubble represents the size of the opportunity that you can address with. And then energy, both direct and indirect, and freight, including mob, demob, and transportation and waste management and so on. So then you group them into the two sources, primary source, which is basically materials and energy, and secondary source, all other drivers together. And then this is a simplified formula with activity data for the materials as well as the emission factors are given in those codes. Then one can calculate from both the sources what is the total carbon emission for the chosen foundation solution. I would like to present this real case studies to give an illustration of the idea of how order of magnitude this can be differ from one solution to other solution. So here is an example of a real case study. On the left-hand side, you can see LNG storage tank facility founded on board cast in 2 piles. And the right-hand side, similar facility founded on a ground improvement technique using vibrostone columns. I must qualify here, I'm not saying that this is in the same project, 2 different choices of technique. In this case study, there are 2 distinguishable geographies, very clearly different from their specific soil conditions. And probably to some extent, the liquefaction loading conditions may differ. But these 2 opportunities are technically viable in those locations. But just take a look more from the carbon footprint point of view. What is the calculation of the CO2 emission arrived at for these 2 solutions? So the first 2 solutions, both the solutions, these are again the primary source, which is the first 2 line items, material and energy. Secondary source, other items like a freight, mob, demob, and asset and waste management. Considering all these drivers or influencers, the first solution, that is on the board cast in stew piles, arrived to be 21,000 over metric tons of CO2 emission. And you can see the major one, I think more than 80% or 90%, 20,000 tons is coming from the primary source, which is materials and the energy. All others are contributing only 1,171 metric tons. And for example, in this solution, there is the involvement of 40,000 cubic meter of concrete and 4,000 metric tons of steel that is required to satisfy the foundation technique to suit the performance criteria. On contrast, this other project where we are able to use technically viable solution using ground improvement, and this is as low as only 800 metric tons. And you can realize there is no cement and steel in this, only naturally quarried stone material of a magnitude of 110,000 metric tons is utilized in this project. And in comparison, you can see from 21,000 to 800, although it appears to be more than 90% reduction, but it is not the case all the time. It is subjected to specific soil conditions and the geography conditions for the earthquake loads and so on. But I'm very sure, given the same project in the same soil condition, if there are two techniques, one with a heavy foundation, other one, provided this is competent, a technically competent viable solution using ground improvement, there could be savings of in the order of 50 to 60% of carbon emission, which I think we should all strive for and ensure that there is a better sustainability achieved in that project. So in that way, I would like to summarize this case studies demonstrated how carbon footprint influencing the choice of foundation technique that emphasis on the role of geotechnical engineer to address this sustainability concern. And secondly, heavy foundations emits in generally high carbon footprint in comparison to the ground improvement techniques because of the natural fact that ground improvements normally doesn't use the steel and the concrete. And usage of native materials like stone or sand are more economical and influential in the carbon emission. Geotechnical engineers are challenged to do the right project in the spirit of do it right in incorporating the sustainability concern for the way forward. And last but not least, the ground engineering plays a vital role in achieving the overall sustainability. Our bit is only 10% of the overall construction spend, but if we can make this kind of differences in the carbon emission, I think we are having a much better say as a vital role in playing that project here. So with that, I would like to thank once again both organizers as well as the chairman and co-chair for giving me this very interesting opportunity to deliver my thoughts. Thank you, one and all.
So thank you, Hari Krishna, for the excellent presentation, short and sweet, and this is a need of the hour. So you clearly brought the important aspects to the community. And also I appreciate that you are on sharp 20 minutes. So thanks for keeping up the time. In fact, instead of keeping the discussions towards the end, I understand Hari Krishna has to leave around 3 o'clock. To the audience, if any questions, so we'll allow 1 or 2 questions if you have. Rakesh, any questions in the chat box?
Till now, no questions in the chat box.
Okay.
The panel members can directly, or those who are in this session, they can directly ask the question also.
Yeah.
After.
Yeah. So rather than a question, it's a comment again. So I like the idea of the carbon calculator. So if all of us start using it, it goes a long way. Even if we save a little bit of carbon points, so it will lead a long way. I think we'll make a point to disseminate to the committee about these points. So if no other comments, thank you.
I have one, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
sir,
please.
Mr. Hari Krishna, I have one small comment. How to address the carbon footprint issues for those materials for which there is no database in the inventory, for local conditions, because one of my concerns is if we take up any ground improvement strategy per se, say for example, biopolymeric stabilization, if I'm relying on any material, a material which hasn't been explored abundantly, if I wish to calculate the carbon footprint for that in terms of CO2 emission, how would I do that?
Very interesting comment or question. Sorry, I didn't get your name. May I know?
Arif, Dr. Arif.
Dr. Arif. Okay, Dr. Arif. Okay, coordinator. So basically, yeah, you're right. So for most material, I think the standards, what is developed by DFI as well as the European Federation, there is a way to look at the how much is the quantum of the carbon emission that is going to be caused by that material. But if there is a newer material that is still in an evolving stage and not having the definite quantum, I think, as I said, this is just a start or beginning. But I'm sure as long as we are keeping a very conscious concern on the calculating the carbon emissions for every choice of technique or a choice of solution that we adopt, the way forward, I'm sure the researchers will make sure that even that unquantified materials will be quantified soon. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, sir. Thank you. That would be all, sir. Over to you, Dr. Robinson and Dr. Rakesh Pillai.
Yeah. So thank you. Any questions, Rakesh? Did you get any query?
Not anything in the chat box.
Chat box. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much,
Chairman,
Hari Krishna, for the excellent presentation.
Chairman, since I'm leaving, if there are any questions coming at the end, I'll be more than happy to maybe take it on offline or maybe through email. Sorry that I'm not able to stay till end of the session, but
Okay.
I will definitely get back once I hear those questions.
Yeah, sure. We'll update. Thank you very much.